Welcome to the Mr. Beacon podcast. I am really excited about this week's guests. Adhithi is the founder and CEO of Adrich, and this is an amazing company. They are a pioneer in auto-replenished packaging. So imagine a container for some kind of liquid product that can tell if it is full, if it's being used, and you've basically got the essence of what they do. And I think this is a fascinating use case. The kinds of customers and the use cases is super interesting. The societal benefits, the economic benefits of having smart packaging that can really understand when it's used are huge. We can build this incredible link with consumers. We can have better reusable packaging. And this is one of these use cases that requires huge technical skills, but also real grit and determination. You are pioneering something that's very, very difficult. Adhithi and I have been talking for years. We started talking when I was at Williot, and we've continued that discussion. I'm so glad we got her on the show. And she's also just a very interesting person. So I think if you stay to the end, you'll enjoy the end of the interview where we talk about her. So that's coming. Just a few things I wanted to mention. One is a big thank you to our latest sponsor, Identiv. So, when I left Williot, found ourselves without a sponsor, and I don't know, it's not like a super expensive show to make, but it costs money. Every episode we have professionally edited, and the content's delivered by and published by someone other than me, Aaron, who does a great job. And there's tools that we use. So anyway, it costs money. And, to be frank, getting the validation beyond the money, getting the validation from companies that you really like, which applies to Beacon, from leaders at that company who are, basically doing it. Hopefully there's some benefit to them, but they're also doing it because they believe in the stuff that we're working on, the AmbAI and just the general ethos of the show. It's just a wonderful thing. So I really want to thank the folks at Identiv. It's more than the money. It's the support that I really appreciate. And maybe a few words on how things are going with my new venture, the AmbAI startup, which is going well. As regular listeners will know, we were one of the winners of the AIPIA Smart Packaging pitching competition to McCormick over in Amsterdam, where we had to make a pitch in 3 minutes. And that was a real boost. And actually, since then, a lot of things have been clicking into place. And we've got a really much clearer vision of our product, which is essentially, imagine ChatGPT wrapped in a wrapper that can do three things. One is context. Where are you? What are the things around you? The second thing is a My Things locker that increasingly this is a data asset that will become more and more valuable, especially as AI starts to build connections and digital product passports come into play. So My Things will allow you to keep track of your food, your tools, your clothing. And when it comes time to resell something, it'll make it super easy to do that. When it comes time to fix something, it'll make it easy to do that. When you want help in using it, there'll be help there. So all sorts of amazing applications when you combine AI with and give it a knowledge of where is it and what's around it. And then you give customers the ability to control their data. And then the last leg in this three-legged stool is a two-way connection with brands. So when you ask how to repair something that's gone wrong, you get the right data for the right thing, less hallucinations, and you get rich data, and you start to have a two-way conversation with the brands that you've voted for with your purse or wallet, and lots of benefits for them in establishing that AI-enabled discussion. So that's kind of where we're at. If you know someone that you think might be interested in using such a thing, brands are really our focus, at least initially. And let us know if you're a partner that's involved in doing systems integration or smart packaging. Then we'd love to work with you and your customers to bring them something new that drives your product as well. So enough of the commercial. Let's get to the conversation where we get into what Adrich does. I think you'll find it interesting. Adhithi, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. Always a pleasure to meet and talk to you again.
Yeah, I'm actually heading off to Amsterdam, where we met at the Smart Packaging Show, AIPIA. So this is kind of serendipitous that our conversations have been around here. But let's kick off and just explain a bit about what your company, Adrich, does.
Sure. So at Adrich, it's a IoT meets AI technology, making smart labels for consumer products. In today's day and age, there's a lot of data up until the retail store, but once the product leaves the store, especially for physical products, there's limited visibility into how, when, and where the product is being used. And it's that last mile information gap, or in other words, consumption data of how products are being used once it's opened. That data set is missing. And today, brands are making all their decisions on purchase data. But purchase is not consumption. And that's where we come in. We bring in smart labels equipped with sensors. It goes outside and behind any product label, makes the product smart and connected, captures usage into the when, how, and how much. And more importantly, when you run out and need more product, it auto reorders, talks Bluetooth, gets it to our cloud, and we give brands visibility into that last mile information gap. And for you as a consumer, the next time you run out of coffee or shampoo, you'll find one at the door. That zero touch shopping is what we're trying to bring to the market.
Well, I love what you're doing. I think it's a use case or set of use cases that I fell in love with. I think it's the future, and I really appreciate the pioneering work that you're doing. And so it sounds like you are part of your intellectual property is the smart tag that goes on the container of whatever the product is, whether it's olive oil or bleach or whatever. Do you have an app and a back end? Is that essentially the stack that you've got?
Correct. It is the entire platform, if you will, more beyond the device. And yes, the patents are device, system, and method. And more importantly, I think the fact that it evolved into AI. We don't start with AI, but we started seeing patterns with the sensors, and what started as a IoT, we started seeing patterns. And so where we use AI is to be able to determine in a software driven way as to how much volume is remaining. And it's typically done weight based, but we are able to get it through volume. And that allows for a commercially viable and a scalable platform because, for one, it's the same device, whether it's going on an olive oil or a spray bottle. It's the software, the calibration that changes accordingly. So that allows us for enterprise solution.
Wonderful. Tell us a bit more about how can this work? You've got a label that goes on the olive oil, let's say. Does it go on the bottom, the top, the middle? Where does it go? And what is it actually measuring?
Yeah, so let's take an example of olive oil. If you have a product label that's there, so I actually have some samples. So here is a Clorox.
Okay. Yeah, and part of our audience is listening, but a lot of them are watching. But yeah, you're holding up a Clorox bottle, and they're a real customer, right? I saw on your website. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a normal product label. The smart label goes just behind it. So it's not even visible, and it kind of
Okay.
blends into the existing product label.
And so that's at the bottom of that bottle,
The
then.
bottom of that
Yeah.
bottle. So the anywhere on the side of the bottle it can be placed. So keeping brands in mind, you don't have to, your brands already have these established labeling plants. We didn't want them to change anything in their packaging, so we found that the label form factor was the easiest to work with. So it's almost like as if replacing your product label with a smart label. So
Okay.
it can go behind the existing product label and keep your branding, but it becomes a connected smart product.
Okay.
And I also holding a box here. Now, how do you tell the consumer that there's something smart? Because we go the opt-in route. It is privacy compliant, and so we have this box again where we literally have the logo saying, "Hey, it is smart." Uh,
Yes.
our technology and explaining it. Um,
Yes.
and it's refillable. So the positioning that Clorox did was it's a refill, sustainable, but it it'll auto reorder when you run out, and they were sending a refillable pod instead of a full size bottle. So I'm just trying to see if I have one.
Okay. So you've got the first example was at the bottom of a spray bottle, which is primary packaging. And then the second example was on the secondary packaging, the box that the spray bottle or bottles come in. And so presumably those labels, they talk Bluetooth, and so they can wake up and periodically talk to the phone or your app on the phone. Is that right?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be our app. That's where we again kept consumers in mind in terms of adoption, because you wouldn't want to download an app just to get a reorder, right? So
Yes.
ours is more a SDK. We already integrated with Amazon. So if you have an Amazon app, it will integrate with Alexa or Google Home, any of the smart speakers. And honestly, anything that talks Bluetooth in the consumer home. Now, this can be also applied in B2B scenarios. So, let's say a restaurant is running out of supplies, it can talk Bluetooth to the point of sale system. So, we don't have apps necessarily, but we have a proprietary SDK that is device agnostic. And as long as the device can talk Bluetooth, goes on to that device. And then it uses the 4G, 5G Wi-Fi on that device to get it to our cloud. And that's how one consumers don't have to do anything in terms of scan or talk, or if you remember those push buttons were there.
Yeah. The Amazon Dash button,
Dash
right?
button, yeah. So there's all fully autonomous in that. And then, in terms of getting the data to our cloud, that's where our data pipeline has been pretty seasoned in terms of managing to get the data outside of a facility. That was challenging initially, and now it's streamlined.
So you dropped a couple of major bombshell bits of information there. So one was the whole point of sale approach to integration, and I've definitely heard from restaurateurs that want to understand the correlation between bar staff pouring drinks from a bottle and that actually ending up on someone's bill as opposed to them drinking it or giving free shots to people or paid shots to people where they pocket the money. So is that kind of the use case there for the point of sale?
Yeah, I'd say in a B2B scenario, there are a couple of use cases. One for the manufacturers, of course, there's the challenge of you're today waiting on orders coming from the bar. And of course, a lot of times those orders are missed, so there is lost sales. So for the brand, it's really
Oh,
about just in time replenishment, making sure
okay.
they're being proactive in terms of service. So we still work with the brands. Now, on the other hand, on for the bars, yes, operationally, of course, you're able to monitor dosage. You're able to monitor, to the hourly shifts of how much was between the point of sale and how much was actually consumed. So those correlations happen. We've also seen how marketing, on premise happy hours impact consumption, which promotion helps. So it's really still working with the brands, but there's an additional value prop for the end user, in this case, the bar owners. But if you take restaurants, right, for them as well, you don't run out of important things like olive oil. So we work with the suppliers to supply, to embed this technology into their products when it comes to restaurants, and it eliminates that manual inventory check, which often can get very time consuming.
Yeah, so they can have less capital tied up in inventory. They, less buffer in their supply chain because they're getting real-time demand signals, and they know. So that sounds like a really good ROI, and obviously, as you said, they're avoiding lost sales when you have an outage because someone wasn't perfect at their job in terms of sending the reorder. What's the level of accuracy that you're getting? Because this digital to physical thing is tricky, and I do want to drill into the technology a bit once we've gone through some of these use cases. But what's the level of accuracy that you are getting?
Yeah, that accuracy has been something we've worked on. And as with anything, you work on data, the more accurate it gets, right? But that said, because in our case, when you build those models, there's no data set that exists. We create that data set. So, for example, in a spirits bottle, you need to get volume. We actually track volume remaining and then derive volume poured. We've achieved more recently up to about 97, 98% accuracy.
Wow, that's great.
That's in liquid pourables. And now we are starting to do it with sprays where we can get the granularity to the gram of how much is being sprayed. So it has evolved. And of course, it's taken a bit of engineering there. But yes, that's around the accuracy that we've been able to commit to our customers. Because at the end of the day, even in consumer insights where they use our technology, they are basing it on the accuracy of that data. So we are very careful in saying, of course, it's not 100%, but it's better than weighing scales, which can get very expensive. And the fact that it introduces bias when somebody has to weigh every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a. I'm sure it's frustrating when you get asked for 100%, but you're competing with something that's a lot less than 100%. I mean, do you have a set of metrics, or do you have an assertion about how accurate the alternative is, which is someone with a clipboard or some kind of spreadsheet or something?
Yeah, we actually, because we wanted to validate our value proposition in terms of, let's say, consumer insights, right? That's another use case that brands use us for. And, there's an issue of stated data in terms of regular methodologies, right? So let's say you have to write down every time you use a product, or even if you have to weigh it. A lot of times consumers say something else and do something else, or they would forget that to note down. And I'll give you a actual case study. This was a cleaning product. It was a vacuum cleaner. There was a survey asked, how long did you think you cleaned? And the answers came back 30 minutes. And our tech was saying 10 minutes, right? So it's also the perception versus actual. And this was so valuable for the brand that they were trying to determine the battery life for the vacuum cleaner. And they were probably over engineering it based on the survey responses because everybody said 30 minutes, but our technology was saying 10 minutes. So we saw 46% more accurate data with our technology compared to traditional methodologies. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was something that was interesting.
This is the self-driving car argument. It's like, oh, we can't have a self-driving car because we can't have cars killing people. But if you're saying, well, actually, we're going to be killing like a quarter of the number of people that get killed by human beings, then that tells you need to use the self-driving car. And I think the same argument applies to what you're doing. I'm a techie. I have to ask, how does it work? How does this Bluetooth sticker, does it have a battery? What's it measuring? How does it work?
Sure thing. So it does have a battery. We have printed batteries on it, and it has a couple of sensors. So there are, motion sensors. Of course, you would have guessed that by now. So the motion sensor helps us eliminate false positives, which means that we only capture the usage. So whether you're pouring it or whether you're spraying it. And if you just move the product around, it eliminates all of that false positives. And from
Hmm.
there, we have these other sensors that uses it's proprietary, but it also uses a combination of 16 features that it generates. And depending on the viscosity, and packaging type, whether it's glass, plastic, it takes those metrics to determine volume remaining.
That's so awesome. That's really cool. Congratulations on doing that. What is the battery life and what is the typical cost of the tag?
Yes. So, one, the battery life, there are kind of these power saving mechanisms we've introduced. So, it's come up to 5 years. I have one label in our labs that is transmitting and it has still not got switched off. And it's been 5 years and we can't find where it is in the lab, but we
I
just
know.
get the signal. So, I use
I
that
know.
as a metric. But no, we've been in field with some brands for over 3 years. So we commit at least 3 years, but it has gone beyond 5 years to this point. Long term, we do think there are ways to sort of eliminate or repurpose the battery, and those are always in the works. And what was the second question? I forgot.
Oh, the cost. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the cost. That's the big one, right? And as you would know, Steve, with electronics, now the good news is printed electronics is coming to scale. The fact that that's much reasonable than traditional, plus the scalability. And the fact that in our case, it's a software driven hardware. And that's why intentionally from the get go, we kept the cost in mind. So at high volumes, you're looking at certainly not 10 cents, it's electronics. We're talking about a sub-dollar, but the data that it provides and the ROI we've created offsets that cost. So, we think, and the other big thing is the fact that it's on refillable products
Yeah.
and not necessarily on every unit.
Hmm.
That helps a lot. And that's where, given sustainability is such a major driver, especially in Europe and now in the US, we are able to create this solution where when you run out, especially in the Clorox example, they send a refill diffuse pod instead of a full
Hmm.
size.
Yeah.
And so the label is on the bottle for life, and you're able to get refills. Because one of the biggest problems with refills is when you run out, you go buy a full size bottle instead of the refill.
Yeah.
And so we are able to trigger a reorder of the refill, whether it's shipped at home or consumers go to the store and purchase. But still, it contributes to that sustainability angle and the adoption there.
Yeah, we had a company in a similar business that was, I think they came out of Costa Rica. Gosh, this was years ago, so I can't remember their name. I'd have to go back in the archives to look. But another amazing company, and they had got real momentum in their home country. They were just coming to the States, and they were working with one of the major CPGs, and basically this was for laundry detergent, and people would basically come to a central location and refill,
Yeah.
which was an amazing, wonderful approach. And we see that with water bottles here, so it's
Yeah.
clearly something that is viable, and I just really hope it can take off. So, how do you work on? There must be certain industries where there's a stronger ROI than others. And I can see some of your use cases are around this kind of surveying and metrics. And clearly the ROI is massive. Your tags versus a human being, no contest. More accurate data, much lower cost. But the nirvana is this sort of mass scale thing. And I can imagine that there's an ROI because you've got lower cost of customer acquisition. You're basically someone's, in a way, the more expensive bottle is, especially if the consumer is bearing some of that cost, then you're kind of getting them to commit, and then you've got predictability, the demand signals, and so forth. So, what do you have any? What are the some of the gems that you've got out of your attempt to put an ROI on this?
It's a huge market that way, right? The dream, of course, is to have it on every product that's there out there. But of course, in all of our pilots and case studies, a lot of things that are driven, a couple of metrics. One is what is in it for the consumer in that sense. And of course, no brainer for the brands, it's a significant ROI. Specifically, we've seen a 33% increase in lifetime value, because every time you run out, you don't go to the store to buy another brand. So the brand has a lot of consumer retention. We've seen a 50% increase in repeat orders because the brand actually launched a normal SKU and then a smart SKU. And because it was smart, and in this case, the brand sort of positioned it as a premium SKU, and consumers loved it. The fact that, some consumers who were ordering 6 times in a year for the brand with a normal SKU, they started ordering 9 times. And that's simply because we were able to reorder before they ran out. So that was and the biggest improvement was 60% reduction in single-use plastic or single-use packaging, because they could literally mail the refill pack and save on shipping costs, but also the fact that, you're not throwing away a glass bottle, or for that matter, a plastic bottle. So that was huge savings on the brand side. But on the consumer side, what we found, in case of olive oil, for example, people are getting health conscious. They want to see their own consumption data. So that was very interesting, beyond the convenience of, hey, you're never running out. So they can see their own consumption data. And also, in certain categories, it's compliance. So if you look at vitamins, in our busy lifestyle, we forget to take. So it's a digital reminder for the consumers, because believe it or not, and vitamin brands we work with, there's been just 8% compliance rate in terms of taking vitamins. And so that's a huge problem, both for the consumer and for the brand. So those are some categories that we think it'll.
Have you been able to crack the medical compliance? Because this seems to me to be a huge one, and I have spent some time there, and I was super frustrated because it was like, oh, well, we can't actually see someone swallowing the pill, therefore this can't be classified as true compliance. And I'm like, this is nuts. That is absolutely nuts. And, meanwhile, you've got people getting super sick because they're not taking their medicine. And yeah, it's not 100%, but this getting away from 100% is so important. Tell me what your experience is of this area.
Yeah, I think I agree, Steve. Healthcare is the biggest industry. So we started with CPG, but the same parallel can be drawn to healthcare, right? Consumer insights is clinical trials, subscription replenishment is patient compliance, as well as making sure they never run out. And of course, auto reordering supplies in hospitals, right? So the three use cases apply in healthcare. I think now we are in that. We were waiting for this technology to be more seasoned. And so CPG was less mission critical. Now I think the technology is at a point where healthcare is a huge industry. It opens up. And to your point, yes, it will never be 100%. But I think what is key is, with technology, we are able to be proactive. That is the key piece, that it's not 100%, but it's better than damage control, that, you're losing lives just because of loss and no visibility. And that's where, the technology allows for being proactive. And I think that's a big win there, even though it's not 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think, someone senior needs to just sort of. I think the medical industry is just so bogged down in liability and fear, and that gets in the way of progress. And maybe it's a matter of finding a jurisdiction, a country where you've got someone who's visionary at the top that says, to heck with all of this. This is going to save lives and certainly save massive costs. People switching medication because the old one doesn't work, and it does. It's just that people aren't taking it. That's got to stop. We've got to use your product to solve that problem.
And that's where I think the whole ecosystem can come together, right? Not just the patient, but there are so many stakeholders in just getting one medication. As now that I have experience with the medical system, I myself found it very difficult to keep monitoring, supplies, and where do I go, which doctor do I go, and each doctor has to approve a different medication. So it is a nightmare the way it is. And I
For
think digital
sure.
technology can solve that.
Yeah, my mother went through this health scare, and we came back from the hospital with like 6 different medicine balls, and it took me like 45 minutes to figure out how can I build a spreadsheet so that we can keep track of this, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, it totally
S-
is.
So, have you looked at photovoltaics as a energy source for your tags? I asked that. I'm getting ready for. I'm about to record an interview. Actually, it's probably a couple of weeks' time with the folks from Dracula. I don't know if you've come across them. It's
Mhm.
a wonderful company name. But what was your take on that technology, where you don't need the sun? It's Dracula because it's actually can harvest energy from the moon or from
Yeah,
low level lighting sources.
yeah. I mean, I find technologies there fascinating. I think, like I said, long term, we also would be leveraging those kind of
Mm.
technologies. I think our application is great for that because, one, there's huge volumes with what we're doing. And secondly, I think it's just consumer products. So of course we are able to leverage these new tech. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm always keeping an eye around in that space. And like printed electronics is now coming to scale, I think these alternative energy sources are primed for commercialization. So
Yeah, and of course, ambient IoT is another example where you're harvesting the energy from radio waves. Of course, ambient does include the Dracula use case as well. It's not.
right.
I'm just biased because I came from the RF
Yeah,
world.
I Yep. In fact, I didn't talk to you when we were in Amsterdam. That was one potential area we wanted to also look at whether we could leverage some other technologies. So yeah, that is exciting space, and hopefully, we have a lot of collaboration between our tech and a lot of the emerging players
Yeah.
in that space.
So I want to go back to, you mentioned the Amazon app just very casually. It's like I'd be doing backflips if I was in the Amazon app. Is that kind of widely, obviously the Amazon app is incredibly widely deployed. Are you in every Amazon app or just a few builds or?
We do have a Alexa skill that's available
Okay.
today, and our backend is integrated with the Amazon cloud. So every time you run out, it kind of posts. Now, of course, the brand has to register an ASIN with the smart SKU. So that's where we are. And if the brand registers with the ASIN and you have an Alexa app or an Amazon app, you install our skill and you'll
Yeah.
be able to use that.
So where are you in terms of adoption of that? That's like a huge coup. Have you seen any uptake of that?
Yeah, I think for one, that was a big milestone in the company's roadmap. I do think that because the brands are working on refill SKUs now and they are figuring out the SKU distribution, we have some pilots going on. It will come in the market. The We're just waiting for brands to sort of put a smart SKU on Amazon. That's where it
Yeah.
is. So we're having some conversations, waiting for the right brand partner. And Amazon is a distribution partner for most of these brands. So we give Amazon as an option. We, of course, work with other retailers if they want to do an omni channel strategy. It's just Amazon is online, it's ready, it's existing infrastructure. We just plug into it. So that's where we are, and we're waiting for one of those, the CPG space, right? We
Ah,
need some trailblazer brands to say, okay, we'll do this, and it's coming. It's just that sustainability is also a good market driver. Everybody has to get into reducing single use. And I think Europe is a market that, in fact, the olive oil company that's based in Netherlands. So we're working with some DTC brands if they have a direct to consumer and a refill SKU. That's our, there are smaller brands, so we are able to work with them faster. But
yes.
long term, we will be working with the bigger brands, and Amazon could be one of their channel partners to list the SKU. Alternatively, we work with other retailers as well.
Yeah, and my friends at the Ambient IoT Alliance might differ with me, but in my personal definition of ambient IoT, that is ambient IoT because it's using the devices that are in the environment that are already there that surround us as the channel, even though you may have a printed battery. But I think it's more about scale and pervasiveness than are you actually using energy harvesting in your product, at least from my perspective. Well, Adhithi, this is so exciting. Hats off to you. You took the difficult path. You've achieved so much. So, we've got another half to our conversation where we talk a bit about your music choices and so forth. So, what are your three songs then?
Yeah, for one, I start with, and I think I'm giving away the fact that I'm from a millennial generation. It goes back to, this is sort of dated, but it's the 2010 FIFA World Cup song, Waka Waka with Shakira.
Oh, right.
I love the lyrics specifically because it talks about resilience. So those days, especially in a startup journey, when you have things not going your way, kind of resilience is where that song talks to me about. And I think that is a quality that I feel I have in terms of, you know, the challenges that come, overcoming it. And I feel I've been resilient. So that's how I associate that song. The other one is again dated, but Bon Jovi, It's My Life.
Oh, right.
That I like to listen when, I just like the tempo of that song, a very high, fast beat. And the lyrics also talks to me, sometimes it just something I just associate with, and it peps up my energy. And the third one is actually more recent with I'm So Happy with by Pharrell Williams. That has a special place because recently I went through a health scare.
Oh,
And, in those days when you're like trying to be happy and you have no way of knowing where it's going next, and, every hour changes and you don't feel so good. That was the song I used to listen to. And it has a special place. It really, brought me back. The good news is I'm out now, happy and
that's
healthy.
well, I'm very glad to hear that. Yeah, my mum's been going through something similar, and it's obviously you'd much rather these things didn't happen, but I guess it's part of the human condition. And what it does do is it really wakes you up, doesn't it, about how finite this is. And I'm sure part of it is it raises questions about are you doing what you should be doing, what you want to
Yeah,
be doing, and I guess the
absolutely.
answer is you are because you're still doing it.
Yeah, I mean that's when I realized this the whatever I'm doing, the passion speaks for itself. I never stopped even during those days. In fact, I used to use my work as a distraction from all the other things going on. To
Hmm.
It showed me the fact, I mean, I talk of resilience, but more importantly, I was like, this cannot be happening. I mean, I was a time when I had to get admitted, and I'm like, oh, I have this client call, and I had to kind of arrange for this. So I'm like, that was beyond me, but it also talked to
Mm.
me about how passionate I was about what I'm doing. But at the same time, it taught me, you've got to draw a line.
Yeah.
And the fact that, it's so uncertain and the moments of life becomes so much more important. Family becomes important. And it's not, and I realize I love traveling and the fact that I couldn't travel. So you kind of learn about yourself so much more.
Yeah.
And I think that was an experience nobody should have, but coming out of it, you come out stronger and you kind of start appreciating things that you took for granted. I think that was a
Yeah.
big learning.
So have you gone abroad for this job in your role as CEO of Adrich?
Yeah, that's what has been most exciting. We met in Europe at Netherlands, and so the company has given me opportunities that I couldn't think of. And so, yeah, Europe. In fact, we did a complete road show, and Europe was always on my bucket list. So the road show happened with Portugal, and then we met in Amsterdam, and then we had opportunities in Switzerland. So the fact that the company is getting that exposure and the awards. Of course, in the US, we always get called for keynote speaking, and that's another thing I enjoy. The fact
Uh-huh.
that there is more than just the company, but the expertise and the fact that you can share stories. And of course, we are in Asia too. India, of course, we've slowly expanded there. And just as of last year, I was in India representing Pittsburgh as part of a Thai Global Women Entrepreneurship. And the fun fact with that was it happened in my hometown.
Wow. What is your hometown?
Bangalore, South
Oh,
India,
okay.
southern part
Oh,
of India, yeah.
right.
And it was fun because my family attended because they were in the city. So it was a fun moment. Life came a full circle. And the icing on the cake was we won that award as well. So it was
That
nice.
must have felt really good.
Yeah.
I've been to India just once, and I really want to go back again. It was on holiday; it wasn't on business. I went to
Mhm.
Goa, which I'm sure is like you consider a very touristy place to visit, but it was a wonderful thing. And this was pre-era of digital cameras, and I remember I got the most amazing pictures, in the markets with all of colors. It was just spectacular, and there's nothing like actually being there. The sad thing is, I got back home and I realized I'd used the same roll of film twice in my camera. So I'm like,
Ooh.
it was just like one of those horrible feelings when
Yeah.
you have something that you're really looking forward to that gets taken away. But the trip to India was amazing. And, but I had to, for me, this was decades ago, and it was, I needed time in the hotel just to kind of get over the culture shock of everything. It was amazing.
Yeah, it can get very overwhelming, but once you get past the chaos,
Yeah.
you can see the color and the music. And the fun part of India is, I mean, even today, North and South India are like two different countries. We have different cuisines. It's almost like, amalgamation of multiple countries in one country because the languages are different, the cuisines are different. Of course, you have the mountains and the beaches. So it's vibrant in that way. But I hear what you say, it can get overwhelming for first time visitors with the crowd and with the chaos.
Yeah. And I just remember the roads and like thinking we're never going to make it to this destination alive because the car was like dodging cows that were wandering in the road. And I remember taking a railroad ride, and there were people sleeping on the tracks, and I'm like, "Oh my God, these people are going to get killed!" And then, sure enough, we ended up walking home along the tracks. So it's you very quickly kind of get pulled into the local ways, and in a world where everything is getting more and more homogenous, everything's kind of the same. It certainly, I loved it because it was just so different to what I got used to growing up in England, which obviously has its fair share of Indian culture. And
Yeah.
I was just struck by how another ignorant tourist thing, I love Indian food, and so I was just amazed that all of the names that we British use to name the Indian dishes are actually completely, a work of fiction and aren't what real Indian people call their food,
Yeah.
madras and all that sort of stuff. It's
Right. Yeah, true. I mean, the authentic way of saying, and there are layers to it. Although India's now, I mean, it's amazing when I go back, you have technology that's unheard of. The sustainability, I'm amazed at that kind of a population. The city, Bangalore, metropolitan city, it's amazing that they don't use plastic covers for grocery shopping.
that's
And
great.
I was amazed at that adoption because everybody takes a bag to shop and there are no plastic bags. And that way, it's very impressive how sustainability is caught on, and not just by the government, helping with the regulations, but the consumers. And I find myself, using plastic because here in the US we get, bagged
Yeah,
goods and groceries. And when I go there, people, look at me saying, "How could you?" kind of a thing. So it's
yeah,
amazing that way. And of course, technology is much better and infrastructure has improved. Of course, yeah, we always have the traffic, but I guess that's where the adventurous kind of DNA
yeah,
gets developed,
yeah,
growing
absolutely.
up with the resilience. But yeah, it's interesting to see that international travel also gives you a lot of exposure, and that's what I find. It's amazing how by decades it's improved.
And are you seeing or hearing about changes due to the kind of the tariff war with China? Is it really driving economic development in India in any noticeable way?
There are initiatives called Make in India that is happening. It is so manufacturing has is actually very very seasoned in India. Except of course we don't get printed electronics and some of those things that we use. Those kind of advanced technologies haven't yet come there. But traditional manufacturing, whether it's electronics, whether it's any kind of artwork, those have been very good infrastructure and good quality too. So in fact, we also initially started with manufacturing, of course, here in the US, because printed electronics is in the US. But early days when I was starting to build the product, I went there and I got a lot of help and support from local manufacturers in India.
Yeah.
And I think the capability and the knowledge base is significant. So, yes, there are initiatives with Make in India. Within India, a lot of companies are incentivized to manufacture in India, but I think it has come on the global map as well as a good manufacturing hub.
Well, one last question I had. I was looking at your background on LinkedIn just before our conversation, and I realized, certainly from what I saw, it looks like you very quickly decided you were going to do your own thing, start your own company. I mean, in my case, it was like decades before I started my first startup. So, what would you attribute that to?
Hands down, it was because of my parents.
Oh,
My dad and mom had businesses. Dad specifically was working in corporate, and he started his own when I was probably 5 years old. And I grew up in a business family and environment, and he kept saying customer is king. And he was in a lot of businesses and my mom would help, so I saw the sort of thrill of entrepreneurship. So very early on that entrepreneurial bug was set in. Although I found my passion in technology and knew that I was getting into this some point in time, but I did want to build up towards it, right? So did some corporate experience in India in Robert Bosch and Lucent, which gave me automotive sensor, very strong R&D profiles, right? So I got my core foundation there. And then Did my schooling, and of course in Carnegie Mellon did a master's, and worked in corporate America, in Siemens, and in a company called Expedient, which is cloud computing. So I did want corporate experience to sort of learn everything hands on. And the way I put it, sometimes you learn what not to do as well, which is as important as
Super
what to
important.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was building towards a good foundation to start off entrepreneurship. And then it was a side hustle for some amount of time. I mean, I kept coming up with ideas and would dabble and tinker. And I think it was a side hustle. And this particular idea, I got a customer to pay some amount of money for a very clunky prototype, and kind of validated the market demand before I got into it full time. And then, of course, got some funding from Sony and Innovation Works and some VC.
Yeah.
So then that's how got into it full time.
So you kind of went the hard way in a sense, I think, because you chose kind of deep tech versus kind of a more nuts and bolts, basic line of entrepreneurship. My sister-in-law did an MBA, and she made a really good business selling picture frames to corporations. I sort of think about that, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't interest me at all, but it's just such a much better way of, certainly a lower risk way of, which is sort of purely about your entrepreneurial chops. And I remember an old colleague of mine from a computer manufacturer that we were both at, who left after like over a decade and set up a carpet cleaning business. And he's like, the level of competition is just so much easier here. This tech company, we were competing with some of the smartest people in the world, and this is a lot easier. So I don't know. You chose the difficult path, it seems.
I think that, I question myself on that every so often. But hardware is hard. And I think what inspired me was disruptive technology, right? I think during my MBA, I studied about all these, disruptive technologies and how it's hard. It's very difficult. I mean, if you look at our company, Adrich, it's not just deep tech. It is a
Yeah.
category, as well as you're changing the way people do business for the last 30 years. So there's a behavioral change. So yes, it was tough, but I think there were two aspects. One is I did want to do something disruptive, and the marginal improvements wouldn't excite me,
Yeah.
although that's a easier business to build. And the second thing was I wanted to build something in my core competence. As much as hardware is hard, it gives a great barrier to entry. And given my background in Robert Bosch and Lucent,
Yeah.
where I was on literally hardware and embedded systems, I just loved that space. I think there was a lot of creativity that could be done. There's a lot of potential, and it's a niche expertise that you can build a career on. And of course, in terms of business, I think it gives a lot of competitive advantage, although it's difficult to get there. But once you get there, it's a great business to be in.
Very good. Well, Adhithi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been great talking with you.
Well, thank you, Steve, for having me. It's been a pleasure, and as always, enjoyable talking to you.
So that was Adhithi. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with her as much as I did. This week's musical indulgence for me, what was I listening to? Radiohead, OK Computer, amazing album, came out in 1997. And this is an album that I first discovered back at Williott. We started this tradition that every time someone joined, they got to choose a vinyl album, and we had a record player in the communal area. And I remember our head of product, Roberto Sandre, chose this record, and I was just blown away with it then. And I just came back to it and kind of rediscovered the 2017 remaster that's on iTunes, and it's just amazing. Airbag is like this opening track that's based on Tom York's near-death experience when he crashed his car in Oxfordshire. And then Paranoid Android is just like this Bohemian Rhapsody influenced opus that swings from quiet to incredibly loud. I was probably annoying everyone that I live with listening to that at very loud volume just now. And I just can't say enough about how good this album is. If you haven't listened to it or you haven't listened to it for a while, then check out OK Computer by Radiohead. So that's it. Thank you. Thanks to Aaron Hammock for editing and publishing the episode. I hope that you are enjoying this. If anybody is in contact with the folks at Hubble, especially their CEO, I really want them on this show. Please make the case that they should come on the Mr. Beacon podcast. If you don't know who Hubble is, check them out. They actually just took their service to the next level. It's a satellite-based constellation of Bluetooth listening devices. So you can have a beacon, you update the firmware, and you can track it globally, apparently, using this variation on the Bluetooth protocol. Their CTO is an amazing guy. He's ex-Amazon. And I would love to find out a bit more about what they're doing with beacons in space. I think it could be a good show, but they're a difficult catch. So thanks for listening. If you have been, please enjoy the journey. Please tell your friends and colleagues about this, like us, and most importantly, catch up in 2 weeks' time when the next episode comes out. All the best. Thanks for watching this episode of the Mr. Beacon Ambient IoT podcast. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and share this video and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss further episodes. For more information about Bleakon, head over to bleakon.net. For more information about Identiv, go to identiv.com. And for more information about AmbAI, go to ambai.ai.